ضيفتنا الليلة في أنتي سبيسيال هي أخصائية أمراض الدم وعندها خبرة واسعة في زراعة نخاع العظام وباحثة في سرطان الدم في سيدني أستراليا. هي قائدة وطنية وعالمية في مجالات أبحاثها، وهي مناصرة لتحسين الرعاية الصحية للفئات الضعيفة بما في ذلك المرضى في المناطق الريفية والنساء وكبار السن. عندها اهتمام بحثي في تقديم رعاية شاملة للسرطان بتلبي احتياجات الخاصة بالنوع الاجتماعي في رعاية مرضى السرطان. هي ناشطة نسوية متعددة الجوانب وداعية وقائدة في مجال المساواة بين الجنسين والتنوع والشمول في الرعاية السريرية والبحث وتطوير خدمات الرعاية الصحية. استضافتها فوغ أستراليا كنموذج رائد للنساء حول العالم في الجيش الأبيض لمواجهة الكورونا في 2020. ضيفتنا الليلة في أنتي سبيسيال هي البروفيسور والأخصائية ندى حمد. Nada, it is real pleasure to have you with us here today in NT. To make this interview a little bit easier for you, we are going to carry on the interview in English. But how about we start with a quick hello in Arabic and tell you كيفك يا ندى؟ أخبارك؟ ومنورانا الليلة في NT.
Shukran, Yanada, and thank you for doing it in English, because it's been a long time since I've done an interview in Arabic and it might just not be as good. So I thank you for accommodating that for me. It's been lovely to see you do the work that you do, and I've really enjoyed all of your interviews, and thank you for the invitation. It's an honor and a privilege. Thank you.
So how about we start with how different your vision is towards motherhood in terms of its impact on women's work. I mean, we all think that when we become mothers, it'll reduce our production, but you believe that motherhood increases a woman's productivity and effectiveness. Can you share with us your point of view?
Look, I think my perspective is probably not different to many women. We all know this. I think when I became a mom, I realized that my superpower was enhanced dramatically. My ability to recognize what's important just this minute, to prioritize activities and, in terms of importance, doing things really quickly, doing things smart and efficiently, because every single minute there was a million things to do and it could be overwhelming. Now at home, you're able to do these kinds of things in your own time. You get to decide what's important. You get to decide when things get done. While at work, there's a lot of other competing interests and other competing stakeholders. So it's critical to recognize that the skills that you learn at home actually have application at work. And for me, it was a moment of awakening and realization that actually women all around me at work had this superpower. And I started to notice that they use it all the time, which is why, particularly in moments of crisis, women just brighten up and light up, and that's where we do our best work. There is nothing more incredible to observe than a woman that is in action in a moment of crisis. And in medicine, and at least in the hospital sector, I see this all the time. There's a reason why women, I think, gravitate to the healthcare sector. We tend to do it with kindness. We're caring, we're compassionate, and we work smart, and we work very well with other people. So, I think it's really important that women understand that they have this power, and it's important for mothers to recognize this power within them, because the world keeps telling us that, when you go away to become a mom, something, in your priority list diminishes. So work isn't as important to you, that you're not going to be as productive. You're going to be too busy. You're going to be too tired. And I would really hope that women try and block that out a little bit and think internally about their own inherent power and superpowers and skill set. Because in reality, every new experience gives you a skill set. We think of leaders as people who've had experience in leading, And I think women at home who have kids have certainly had experience with leading and experience with managing competing interests that can be quite demanding. And what's more complicated than keeping, children alive from hurting themselves and from being, sick and from, harm. It's actually quite an amazing skill set that can have applications elsewhere. So I would hope that your audience and women in general can start to look inwards towards their own energy, towards their own strengths, and not listen so much to what people say and what people think their strengths and skills are.
What do you want to plant in your daughters to make sure that they're going to be well-empowered women as they grow?
Look, having daughters really changed everything for me in terms of how I thought of the world. Before having kids, it was all in my own head, what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be. And when I became a mother, it's about how I wanted to change the world for my daughters. And some of that comes from the extraordinary role model I had in my mother, who was just an extraordinary woman and a human being in general. She was a force to be reckoned with. And I think that in doing that, I started to reflect more on how I wanted to raise my daughters. I think that women have a lot of expectations imposed upon them, a lot of ideals that are not necessarily ideals that I appreciate or ascribe to. These are all societal and cultural ideas that sometimes come externally. And I realized the one thing that probably will empower my daughters is the skill of critical thinking, the skill of hearing information, analyzing its authenticity, its where it comes from, why it is that people say these things, for example, or think things, and then coming up with their own ideas and thoughts beyond that, so that there isn't that pressure, that they don't take on board societal and cultural pressures, internalize them, and then behave accordingly. Because I think one of the things that holds women back is what other people say or do, whether it's in your friend circle or family circle, and even beyond that, societally and culturally. I really think that that's where that empowerment comes from. So it's quite hard raising women like that, young women like that, because it means that as a mother, I have to allow them to challenge me on a regular basis, which can be extremely difficult when you are trying to parent, when you're trying to work, when you're trying to survive COVID. It's really hard to accept that you need to spend time to develop young women's voices, so that I let them argue with me. I ask them to challenge me, and that is hard. It takes a lot of energy, but this is something my mother did for me. And I'm not sure she did that intentionally. Certainly both my parents did. And I'm, like I said, I think it was accidental that they developed this notion of, okay, we're going to have a conversation, we're going to argue, we're going to challenge you and you're going to challenge us. That practice is so important. That curiosity or thinking critically is just so integral to developing and building strong, well-rounded women. And applying that in a day-to-day basis is probably so important. It's probably more important than anything they're going to learn anytime in their lives. So it begins at home for me. And it may not be so fun all the time, but I always remember the way that I practiced arguing with my parents is what gives me the power to be in difficult situations and stand up for myself, and most importantly, stand up for other people. That is hard work because it's not easy to be in those situations. And practicing that at home in a safe environment as you grow up really does help you become a leader later on in life.
Nada, I cannot express just how much I enjoyed this interview with you today. You are a real inspiration and a real أنتي سبيسيال. فعلا 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 اتبسطت بالانترفيو معاك يا ندى، وأنا متأكدة إنه في كذا ندى حمد قاعدة بتتفرج علينا حاليا وشايفة نفسها فيكي. You are a real inspiration. Thank you very much, ندى.
Thank you for saying that. You know, I mentioned my mother as a role model. I think I truly believe women can't be what they can't see. So I think you're doing really great work in showcasing women who have done great things or have aspired to do great things. And I think that a lot of younger women can see themselves in the diversity of people that you've presented. I think it's really important. So I personally take it very seriously to put myself out there. It's not easy, but it's really important that young children, especially young girls, see role models like this, and even young boys, because I think it's important to normalize what women can bring and the strength that women can bring in every situation. And I think COVID is that moment for me where I'm starting to realize this work is important, because otherwise we can't really move forward. So thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to your listeners for listening.